So hello to anyone who's joining us now. Um, welcome along to this Green Register Twilight Talk. We've got quite a few people joining, so we'll take a little bit of time just to let people filter in. But yeah, many thanks for uh, giving us an hour of your evening. So yeah, we'll be talking today. I hope you can see from the screen that you're in the right place. I hope you are in the right place for today's Twilight Talk. Uh, Really focused on license to build, which is an initiative generated by the Federation of Master Builders. And yeah, delighted to have Ian Kirtley of the FMB joining us to give a presentation. Um, before before we get into that, we'll just go through a bit of housekeeping and give people a couple more minutes to join. Um, so yes, my name's Tom Westwood. I'm one of the directors at the Green Register, and I'll be hosting the event today, helping chair a few questions and probably ask a few myself. And my colleague Elaine is on the call as well. She'll be here for any assistance. So if you're having any issues, technical issues, connection issues, or if you've got any general questions, do please drop a message in the chat to Elaine or raise your hand and we'll try and come round to you. Um, so yeah, just to say a few more things. Welcome to everyone. Some of you, I'm sure, will have been to Green Register events before, but equally, I'm sure there are people joining for the first time. So yeah, welcome to everyone. Um, the idea really of these Twilight talks is to try and share more ideas based topics to complement our program of training events that we run every week. Um, Particularly these Twilight talks, yeah, as I say, are more ideas based, less training based, more meant to stimulate conversation, thought, debate about issues that are live in the industry, on people's minds. And yeah, hopefully tonight should be a stimulating one, really trying to look at uh, build quality, how you find a good builder, what the challenges are around finding good contractors, and yeah, trying to hopefully hear from various different kind of viewpoints from different parts of the industry. So um, yeah, looking forward to that debate. If anyone here is not yet a Green Register member, do please consider joining. There's a link, a web link on the screen now, or you can go to our website in your own time. Yeah, hopefully you'll see there some of the other events that we run, and there'll be things of interest to you. I'll do a quick plug at the end of the event for our next few events that are upcoming. Um, just a few other bits of housekeeping. So microphones. I think as far as I can see, everyone's doing this already. But yeah, certainly during the first sort of 20 minutes or so, if you can keep your microphones muted, that'd be great. Just so we can all hear Ian nice and clearly. Um, and then when we come into the Q&A session, ask you to either put up a hand, and we can come to you to ask a question, or you can type it in the chat if you'd rather do that. Um, it's nice to leave your video on. I think, quite a lot of you are doing that already, which is great. So we can see a few friendly faces. That's always nice. Makes it feel a little bit more personable. Um, and yeah, as I say, any technical issues, a common one can be if people have got trouble with bandwidth. Sometimes if you switch your video off, contrary to what I just said, that can help you with your connection. So if you are having any trouble with the audio, maybe just try switching your video off. Um, One final thing, yeah, if you again, it looks like most people have this, but if you can make your Zoom name the same name as you book the event with, that'll just really help Elaine make sure everyone who's booked is here, and we know who everyone is. So if we come to you with a question, um, great. Well, I think that's all the preamble. So I will stop sharing my screen now, and yeah, introduce Ian. So yeah, I'll hand over in a sec. But yeah, thank you again, Ian, for joining us from the FMB. And yeah, I'll hand over
Yeah,
to you to for your
we crack
presentation.
on. Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, firstly, thank you to Tom and Elaine and the team at the Green Register for inviting me to come and speak with you this evening. And it's really nice to see so much interest in this as well. So thanks for everyone for their time. I will now begin to share my screen. So it shouldn't is that everybody thumbs up? That can be everyone can see that.
That's great, Ian. Yeah,
Brilliant. Um, so firstly, thank you to everybody again. I think it's really nice to see so many people interested in finding a bit more about the Federation of Master Builders, who we are, and what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are at the FMB, our License to Build campaign, and then, as Tom mentioned, some tips on helping you choose the right builder for yourself or your clients' projects. So I'm Ian Kirtley. I'm the Federation of Master Builders South Director. So a little bit about us. We go back, we were started, the FME was established in 1941 by a group of small builders who wanted to help London get back on its feet after the Blitz and help build more homes and support the rebuild there. Fast forward 85 years, and we're the UK's largest trade body for builders, and we're led by members, full members. So our legal directors are made up of our membership. Across the UK, we have over 6,500 company members. So wherever you're joining a call tonight, there will be a master builder near you. In the Southwest, as an example, we've got over 750 company members, which is a fantastic number. The majority of our members are involved in things, repairs, maintenance, improvement in a domestic setting. But we also have members who are doing new builds, both as a client and as a contractor. And we have other members who are involved in repairs, maintenance, and work for local authorities, housing associations, and things like that. The majority of our members are micro and SME builders as well. And our work is to lobby national and local levels on the issues that matter to them. And I think what sets our members apart, and I think this is a really important point, is our members are professional builders. They have been vetted and inspected. So when they apply to join, we will vet their directors to make sure they've got no issues with Phoenix companies, that their trading history is good. If they pass that, then we'll inspect a project to make sure that they are competent in what they say they can do, that they can do it, because we want them to meet the high standards, because we want consumers to be confident in the issues that are facing them as well. And it's around 20% of those who apply are not accepted into membership because they don't meet those standards. So it isn't a case of someone pays a fee and we let them in. That is not the case at all. And throughout their membership with us, they must abide by a code of conduct. And if they don't meet that, we do remove people from membership, because our members work really hard for their reputation and we don't want it tarnished by others. So we will remove people if they don't meet those standards. All our members will offer insurances and contracts on their projects and warranties. And behind the scenes also sits a dispute service. So if there is ever an issue, there is peace of mind for the client as well that exists. And that disputes team has been accredited with the Chartered Trading Standards Institute, which I think is really important to also demonstrate our commitment to our own accreditation. So I'm just going to move on then to why a license to build. And a lot of you may already know this, but at the moment in the UK, as it stands, anybody can be a builder. So I can come and do some work on your house. I don't have to prove any competency at all. I can just turn up, I can quote for some work, and I can take your money, and I don't have to demonstrate anything. And it's fair to say we don't think that's quite right. So last year, building on a number of years of work that we've been doing, we published our License to Build report, which was done in association with the Homeowners Alliance. And I think, again, many of you on the call will be aware of the issues we've had with things like the installation scheme, where competency wasn't quite where it needed to be, and there have been issues. So again, we launched this campaign, relaunched the campaign with an updated work last year. If you're in, the QR code will take you to the report. So if you want to have a look at that as well in your own time, feel free to do that. But another reason, so I had to double check how many noughts and zeros I needed to put on for this, but that's 14.3 billion pounds. And that is the cost in the last 5 years to homeowners who have lost out to rogue traders. I'm not going to call them builders because I think calling them rogue builders is unfair to the brilliant builders that exist, including our members. And in the background, you can see some of those headlines as well. And I'm quite sure many of you on the call today will have had experience directly or indirectly of somebody experiencing a rogue. And I think it's, if ever there's a reason to stop this, this is one of them. And also, it's not just the loss of this money to rogue traders, it's the loss to the income, to the economy of money which isn't being spent on projects as well. So there is millions of pounds which people are sitting on who have projects they'd like to do, but they're just concerned that they will be a victim, so they're not going ahead. So the price, it's almost what's the cost of not doing having a license to build? And the human side of this again. So here's a couple of examples here of Rosemary and Phil and Rebecca and Chris. So you might be able to read their quotes there, but in effect, slightly different amounts of money that they've been victims of, but they've ultimately lost out of money when they've been using. They fell victim to rogues, and what they've discovered that the consumer protection that exists at the moment just isn't adequate to support them, and they are going through long battles to try and find some help. And we think, again, another reason is we should be licensing the domestic industry because of this. And I mentioned our research. So at the moment, quite interestingly, our research found that 81% of homeowners already support the idea of a mandatory licensing scheme for builders. And again, there you can see that 47% of homeowners already think that builders are licensed. So there's clear support for it from a consumer homeowner side of things. Um, And also, nearly 39% of homeowners didn't know that builders didn't need to pass any tests anyway to prove competency. And the impact of hiring an unreliable builder or unqualified builder can be all sorts of things. So that can lead on to things like poor workmanship and unexpected extra costs. Um, so if we drive up the standards by having a license to build, then what we're going to do is drive down these issues that people are experiencing. We're going to drive up the standards and the quality, and people are having to pay again to have work rectified. I speak with members often where they've gone into a project because they are rectifying the work that somebody has done beforehand. And it's the homeowner who's ending up paying twice because they've had to pay first time and lost out and they're having to pay again to bring somebody else in. So I'm quite an advocate, quite rightly, for the license to build, and I think it's for me, there's obvious benefits for the scheme, and I think if we look at them in terms of why, the license to build, the benefits ultimately is to drive out the rogue element who are affecting the industry more generally. It will increase the standards because we're saying there will be a benchmark and a minimum competency that would be required as well. And at a time when we are wanting to attract more people into the industry and there's an issue around skills gaps, if we can boost the professionalism of the industry, what we can then also do is make it more attractive to people to come in as well. I'm old enough just to remember at school where the attitude to building was if you didn't work hard enough, you'd be a builder. And I think that's a terrible attitude. And construction is one of the most rewarding industries there is. And if you ever get a chance to speak to any of our members or you speak to a good builder, they're some of the smartest people you'll ever meet. And we should be doing more to encourage more people to join in. And having a license to build and driving that reputation, the professionalism will do that, I believe. And if we've done that, then consumers, as I mentioned earlier, will be more confident in having work done, which helps the economy and everything else that we're trying to do around things like retrofit, building the new houses that we need as well. So that is a very quick little bit about our license to build campaign, and have to have a look at that self. So while the license to build doesn't exist yet, what I wanted to do now is just talk about a few things that you can look to do to um, help you choose a good builder, or yourself or your clients choose a good builder. And it might seem really obvious that why is it important to choose a right builder? And sometimes these things are hiding in plain sight. But ultimately, building work's an investment, and it doesn't really matter. I don't think whatever the cost or whatever the size of the project is, it might often be the biggest investment that someone's going to make. So it's really important that you have a good relationship with your builder to make sure that investment is worthwhile. Uh, Choosing your builder, it's like anything, that good communication, the good relationship with them will make all the difference. You've got to think about when you're choosing your builder, you can work with them, got that relationship, but you want to understand the level of involvement that you want. Are you going to look to project manage that yourself, or are you going to let that go to the builder to do it all? I know for myself, I'm definitely going to let the builder do it. But if you've got that relationship with the builder and you know, then both parties, you both know where you want to be doing and how you want to work together, and it will make your project a success. And again, it probably seems really straightforward, but yeah, the right builder is absolutely key to the success of your project. If you're choosing the builder for the wrong reason, and that can be the price, then that's when that can cause problems. It might seem that's an odd thing to say, but if you're communicating well with your builder, you've got good understanding, and you've chosen them because you can work with them and everything else that you've found out about them, then that's the really good place to start with it because they'll help you achieve what you want to achieve using their experience. So some tips then to help you choose the right builder. Sometimes there's nothing better than a personal recommendation from friends or family. It's a really good place to start. Or you might already be using a trade and they might know somebody. So you can look at that as well. Go online. There are plenty of sites to search for a builder. And I'm going to plug the FMB's Our Finder Builder service. So as I mentioned, we've got 6,500 company members across the UK. So wherever you are, there will be a master builder near you. And you can go on there and you can look at examples of their projects. You can search for who's in your local area using your town or your postcode. You can also upload your job on there as well. So if you wanted to, you can send it on there. Members can come and contact you to quote for it. But it's a really important opportunity as well to check if because as I say, in an unlicensed industry, people do trade off the back of being a member of the FMB, and we also get people who aren't members who say they are. So you've got a good chance to go and check on there as well. The project is really important. You've got a really good brief as well, because if you've got a really detailed brief that sets out everything that you're expecting, that you want the project to achieve, then what you're going to have is when you get your quotes coming in, everybody's quoting for the same work, so you know exactly what it is that you're looking for, and then there's nothing being left to interpretation, which can cause quotes to be wildly different. So you want to include things like any plans or drawings. You want to be including building control information, any planning permissions or restrictions, things like access to site. Is it difficult to get to? Are there logistical challenges that might need overcoming? Are there times when deliveries can or can't take place? So put all that in your quotes. So when you sorry in your brief. So when you put your quotes in, get at least three. It's everybody says always get at least three quotes, and don't go just for the cheapest because there may be you need to understand why they might be the cheapest. If it seems that some a quote is significantly cheaper, um, it's really worth asking. Well, how do they feel they can achieve what you're asking without cutting any corners? If the other quotes that you've had in are closer together, that's really important. It's also important to consider that they've included everything that you want that you need, including even things like waste removal, permits, or anything that's happening as well. And also by getting the quotes, what you're going to be able to do is tap into the experience of the builders who will help you develop the project. And it will also help you, as I mentioned earlier, around that communication and how you can work. You can see if you can get a good rapport going, and that might help you as well when you're choosing your builder. And finally, for here as well, talk to previous customers and ask to visit projects. I know when I speak to our members, they are a good builder. Our members are always happy to show projects and introduce people to clients that they've worked on before because they're proud of what they've done. And there's nothing better than speaking to a client who can give you an example of a work, and you can see how that builder works. Is the site tidy? And I was speaking to a project, one of our members, and he was telling me about a project when he bids for client work. He always likes to ask them to go and see a project during the build, so they're not seeing it at the end when it looks really nice and shiny. But he says he encourages them to go and see a project mid-site so they understand what it's like and they can speak to the client to get an idea of the conditions, what it's like working with that builder. It's a really good opportunity. And I think also, as well as speaking to previous customers, a lot of good builders and many of our members are on social media. on Instagram where they are quite rightly proud of the work that they're doing and they're showcasing all the things that they're involved with. So it's a really good opportunity to go and see and have a look around at the type of work they're doing as well. So do check out Instagram especially because a lot of builders are talking and promoting and they'll show you all of the work they're doing as they are producing some incredible stuff across the UK. So that's the type tip, 5 tips to help you find the right builder. So then next move on to the fact that you've now found the builder that you want, which is a really positive step. But there's a few things you can do to really make sure that you are really putting some things in place to make sure the whole build process runs smoothly. And the key one is absolutely make sure you've got a written contract in place. For example, all of our members have access to an FMB contract. So they can put that. So just make sure that's in place. It's really important because what you're going to do is set out everything that you're expecting from the project. So it avoids any misunderstandings. And it's going to state what work should be carried out to the expected standards, who will be responsible, what happens if there are defective products and things like that. It should also include things around the schedule of works, and then that will help you building your payment plan with the builder as well. And it's also going to include any requirements on things like your building control, party wall agreements, plans and drawings. And given the time, the last few months, some contracts also include details of things around any overruns that might be due to the weather conditions. I've spoken to many members since the beginning of this year where sites and projects have been delayed because they just can't get on because it's just not worth it. So it's just making sure those conditions are in there as well. And just make sure it includes everything you're expecting it to include. Even don't leave anything to assumptions. So things like, again, who's going to be supplying the materials for your project, who's taking the safe removal and disposal of waste from a licensed carrier, the snagging and making good after the work's finished as well. But also make sure you're clarifying what won't be included, so you've got understanding. And it's sometimes it's when change for the project happens is when it can go sideways. So it's always a good idea to have a chat with your builder is to understand how they deal with change and what do they do if things happen. So just ask them what do they do if there's an issue for a change of a project. Right, so you've got your contract in place, which is fantastic. So that's set those things out. And the next one, talk to them about money. Often this is also where problems can arise because it's really important that if you've got a good relationship with your builder, you can have a good, free, open conversation with them about money. So your contract, you'll be setting up your stage payments. It's never pay, again, it probably sounds like common sense, but never pay large sums up front. A deposit, some members and some builders will ask for a deposit quite rightly because they're going to have some costs that they need to cover initially, things like ordering materials, or it might be just booking their teams in, but never pay large sums up front. And if you get asked that, that's the time to stop and walk away because that's not, your gut will be telling you just don't do it. Also, things like ground rules. It's your house, it's your home that people will be coming into. So things like setting the ground, and you can put this in the contracts as well. So it's things about agree the start and finish times each day. The use of things like the facilities in your home, like the toilets or the kitchen. And again, as I mentioned, all of our members have access to contracts. But also you can put in things about site tidiness, the timeline of the build, the working hours, the noise levels, because I'm sure that your neighbours will let you know if any of those things are being breached. So it's really useful that if there's an issue, they're in there as well. And I think this has been a theme actually, is the communication is absolutely vital for the projects, the success is that you're having those regular conversations with your builder. Many members I speak with, if you ask to see their WhatsApp chats, what they will show you is probably a million different chats. And what you've got on there is every single project they're working on. And that's a combination of themselves, their teams, and the clients where things are getting shared questions and bits. It's just a really quick way. Other members are using other online software, but keeping those conversations going is really important. So having those regular meetings can be video calls, all sorts of things. It just means that any issues can be dealt with quickly if they come up as well. And by having regular catch-ups, yeah, those issues can come back and you can understand how your client, as I mentioned, so how your contractor deals with any change, as I mentioned earlier. when it comes to change as well, changes can be made on a project. But there's sometimes what that can do, it can have an unintended consequence and it can have knock-on effects on other things. So it's really important that you're having those conversations as soon as possible with your builder to make sure the change can be factored in. And its understanding was if you make certain changes, will it impact, for example, the finish date of the project? I've spoken to members where they've had clients who've wanted to change things halfway through the build, and the implications meant that the delay has impacted both the finish date for the project, and it's also had potential impact on the member themselves getting to the next projects, which knocks on. But if you're having those conversations, it's really useful to have those, so you know what's going on there as well. And I think what I should one bit I didn't mention earlier is actually when you're choosing your builder, if a builder says that they can start really soon, like straight away, just understand why it is that they can. What's the reason? Good builders are often booked up for plenty of months in advance because they're scheduling their work. But if a builder says they can start straight away, just ask them why it is that they can start so soon. So there's a few bits about choosing and working with your builder. But what I want to just mention very quickly now then are some of the guides that we have available from our website as well. And again, that QR code will take you to them. We've got all sorts of information on there, from information about party walls, planning applications, permitted development, building control, insulation, energy efficiency. There's something for any project you can think of. There's guides on there. So really useful, in-depth information, even around, again, including on how to work and choose a builder. Really useful, detailed information. So if it's useful for yourself or clients you're working with, please do point them in the direction of that, because it's a really good place to start. So that's me done. There's a few bits, the links. So there's my contact details. I'm always really happy to speak with people who want to find more about our fantastic FMB members, the work that we're doing, or if there's anything else that we can help with. So please do get in touch. Either contact me by my details there, by LinkedIn. Again, there's a QR code scan just to our Find a Builder site as well. So that ends all my elements of the presentation. So let me just get back.
Thank you very much, Ian.
My
Fantastic.
screen. Slightly
Um,
whistle stop, but I think it's just really it's almost, there's so much to do out there. But I think our website, especially for some of those guys, is a really good place to start as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ian. Well, very pleased to see, as you were speaking, that a few questions have come in, many of which were pretty much mirror questions I was thinking of asking, which is so you've done my work for me, guys. Thank you very much. What I propose doing then is asking those first few questions that have come in. But obviously, if anyone else has got any, do please again type them in the chat, and we'll come on to them. Or if you wait until we've gone through those kind of four questions in there, then you can simply put up a hand, raise a hand on Zoom, and I'll come round to you. So, good first question, Ian. Around, have you investigated poor practice by any members, and is there is that a good kind of tool for ensuring members do a good job, and what are the competency checks at the beginning of the process?
Yeah. So in terms of so if there's an issue with a builder, one of our members, let's say there's the dispute service, and a client can use that and they can raise that, and the team is independent to our me, so it's not me doing anything. It's very much about that's why I mentioned they're chartered, they're registered with the Chartered Trading Standards Institute, because it's very much, they have to be, to make sure there's that we're not marking our own homework. And the team will look at information, they'll get the stuff side of things from the clients. So yeah, that's one thing. So, and there's quite a detailed process. And actually, if it's found that they've not met those standards, it will go to the disputes team, to the standards committee, and they can make the decision to remove those from membership, and they won't come back in. Those directors will be blacklisted and not come back in to membership, because it's really important we drive those standards up and drive out that element. Oh, sorry,
Um,
what was the second part
and
of the question?
what
Sorry.
are those initial competence checks? You mentioned that 20% of people who apply don't
Yeah.
accept. So what's that based on?
Yeah, so yeah, a number of things. So some of it includes things like their trading history. They might have things like CCJs that they might have Phoenix companies. You know, they just haven't. They just are not a reputable person for what their trading practices. So there's that sort of things. I think there are 14 or 15 checks that go on. Um, I will be honest. I will check. I will find out. I haven't got all the details on what every single one is, but it's quite well, it's a very thorough process. And if they don't pass the vetting, we don't even do an inspection of a project. So it doesn't even get past that stage. And we will have people who are not accepted because they will have failed an inspection. So a project will go and we'll be like, no, sorry, this standard is not acceptable because it doesn't meet building regs or whatever it is the standards are that are looking.
And that inspection that you mentioned, is that something you do for any applicant, or is that more of a kind of spot check system?
Every single applicant when they apply, if they pass the vetting, only then will we do an inspection. And if they pass those two things, will they come into membership? And during their membership with us, if they pass that and they come into membership, during their membership, we will inspect projects as well, because we want to make sure that there's the standards maintained. And obviously that's where um, it's about that's the point of the standards. It's driving it up. And ultimately in an unlicensed industry as it stands, I think our membership is the closest there is to a licensed scheme. So it's more peace of mind than exists anywhere else, I think, if you use an FMB member.
Great, thank you. Then, yeah, the next question from Marion Heaslip is about the relationship to the Building Safety Act. Um, does that act coming in has that had an effect on your approach, or how you how you see the role of your members versus other people in the industry?
Absolutely, Joe. It's a great question because it's something I know is at the forefront of many members that I speak with. Building Safety Act is, I think, it's seen as being when it's come to big tower blocks and high rise and things like that. But the implications for a small builder are huge, and it's something that's really important to us at the FMB as well. And I mentioned the contracts as an example. So for our contracts, we've built in the requirements around the Building Safety Act and expectations because it is an expectation on builders to have things in place for it. And again, it fits in with the competency. The licensing campaign I suppose, in some ways, is further strengthened by the fact that the Building Safety Act exists because it talks about competency. And they haven't quite decided what that would be. Um, it's quite an interesting approach with the Building Safety Act, but it's absolutely fundamental. And there's huge resources that our members have, and there's huge resources that non-members can access as well via our website. But yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, it's definitely something which our members are working on. In fact, we're working with members now to help shape some of the regulation that we're being asked with. So we mentioned that we are there to reflect the industry issues our members are facing, and they're very much there to do that. And it's being driven by members as a member-led organisation.
So when it comes to like to think about an example, if there's a safety critical element of a build, um, um, let's say putting up a structural beam or something like that, what uh how would the Building Safety Act kind of would that change anything in relation to how any of your members would have worked previously?
I think yeah. So I'm not a technical expert on the Building Safety Act per se, but from my experience speaking with members, what and builders more generally, what they have noticed is a change in the way that they work with building control. So before, building control may have given some clear advice and guidance, and oh yeah, just do it this way instead of that way. But the Building Safety Act has come in and has changed it's illegal. They can't provide that advice. They're not able to do that. And that's where I think for our members and builders, that's where if they've got access to those sort of resources that they need, they can understand what it is. So it would definitely be changing. But it's when understanding, I think, the competence there, are they competent to do those things? Have when they've got their building regs drawing or their structural engineer report, do they understand what it means? Because it's every single stage now of the build, there is a requirement. And the Building Safety Act is running through all of it. And I think it might be that some people don't appreciate why things have changed. But they're definitely, it says things. So yeah, a beam that's required, if they're following what they've been told to do, then that's what they should be doing and not doing things that they're not competent to do.
Great, thank you. Um, Then, yeah, I mean, I was just briefly looking through who we've got on the call. Obviously, I can't necessarily tell exactly who everyone is, but we've got quite a mixture of architects, of contractors, by the looks of it, a few clients, and a few other people from other parts of the industry. So, yeah, next question looks like it might be from a client or someone who's thinking about clients. So, yeah, is there a good checklist or guide for creating a solid brief if you're not experienced with building projects is going to help someone kind of get a good brief together?
A great question. Absolutely is, and it's on our website. So I mentioned the ultimate guides to renovation. There's one on there that's called How to Choose a Builder, and it's a really good one because it sets out things that you can ask, what to put in your brief, questions to ask, things to look out for as well. So it's a much more detailed guide than what I've covered this evening. Um, I will endeavour, if I can. What I will do then on that one, so I can either try and put it in the chat now, and I'll try not to cut myself off because that would just be terrible. If not, I will send it around to you if you're able to share it afterwards, or if people want to, I can send it around. But our website, yeah, it's a really useful one, and it does set out those questions on what to include in a brief, all of that as well, and it sets out what to do once you've signed up and everything else through all the stages. That's a really useful one.
Brilliant, thank you. Um, then, yeah, next question. Looks like it's from a contractor saying, yeah, I agree in principle with a license to build, but I worry that a subscription to this would price me out of some business. I'm a sole trader doing fit out building, already pay for CPS for plumbing work and additional overheads. Yeah. How do you see those sort of issues in?
So, again, it's a very valid question, and I totally understand it. And I think, I suppose the other way would be if we have a license to build, if you were looking to have a license to build, and so if every builder has to be licensed, then everyone's operating from the same playing field anyway. And by driving out the rogue element who might be undercutting pricing, then I think we did some research and we think it would be around 170 quid for a license. Which in the scheme of things, I appreciate nobody wants any bills, but in the scheme of things, that might not be insurmountable. But actually, what it might do is help people win more work. And as I mentioned in the presentation, I think if we've got a scheme where people are comfortable that the people they're using are competent, and then there's a thing behind the scenes which supports them if there's ever a problem, then it opens up more projects to happen, so there's more work. I mean, it might go that might yeah, obviously inflation. That's based on our estimates, so I've just said they just that's a lot less. Yes, it's certainly not that much.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, but again, I suppose just a bit on the lights is we've been pushing this for a number of years now, and there is more traction, I think, from UK government, especially both Westminster and the devolved nations, for license to build because they are hearing more and more about the effects it's having on people. And I think if people think that license to build is a really good idea, then please do speak to your MP and tell them, let them know you support the principles of this because I can't see it. Maybe I'm blinkered, but I can't see a downside to having a license for this. As I mentioned in the presentation, in theory, you have to be licensed to take waste off a site. Yet we don't license the building, so it just feels that something there.
Well, I would, yeah, if anyone does have views on possible downsides, do please, yeah,
Mm.
put up a hand or put a note in the chat because yeah, it's good to have a rounded conversation about all of this. Uh so just to come back to the questions in the chat, I'm gonna just jump over one because the following one is very relevant to what we were just talking about. So somebody's saying, how would people get a license without joining the FMB? Would there be a requirement that's separate to the FMB itself?
Yeah, so what we've been looking at a few models, and one would be like a hub and spoke. So what you would have is a central organizing body, and then organizations around that which people would apply. So it would form part of, for example, membership of the FMB. If you pass that, that would be your competency, your license to build would be from us, or you could get it from different. But at the moment, we're a way away from that. But that's one of the yeah hub and spoke type model. Again, I will pop the link because our report's got a lot more detail on how we see it working and that side of things. But it's yeah, I don't think it would be necessarily you wouldn't have to be an FMB member to have a license to build. We're not saying that. It's certainly not trying to say everyone should join us, and that's the case. But what we're saying is we think we could be a good place to start, and we could be one of those that provides a license to build.
Great, thank you. Um, Then, yeah, a question around the contracts. So, yeah, you mentioned contracts briefly in. Um, yeah, David Cole saying, are JCT minor works contracts in widespread use, or are there different contracts that you
Um,
use or recommend?
Yeah, so for my conversations with members, they use a mixture of either the JCTs. I haven't seen the JCT, so I don't know. I can't comment on what it includes. But I do speak with our members, and they use our contracts. And I think what members and clients like about the FMB contracts is that they're easy to understand, to the point where you, they're almost, this is straightforward. What, there's a trick here, but it's not. It's That's why they've been written that way, to make it as useful as possible. And I think it also, for David's question, I think it also depends on the projects that members are doing. As I mentioned, some members will be doing work for local authorities, for example, so they might require a different contract. But I think for a domestic market, I think the FMB contract is really useful. And obviously, the FMB contract can only be used by FMB members. So if you're using a builder or a contractor who's not an FMB member, then they will have their own either JCT or other versions, or they'll have had some drawn up.
And there's also on the JCT front, there's I assume this is still in place, but certainly a few years ago there was a JCT homeowners contract, which uh, I'd used on a job, and yeah, that was definitely much more slimmed down than some of the other JCT contracts, and plainer language. Yeah, I think was a very good option for renovation jobs. Um, on a slightly related note, yeah, is there any coordination between the FMB and the RIBA that you know of, Ian?
Yeah, so absolutely. So we have had the conversations at senior level with the RIBA, because obviously architects are absolutely vital to these projects, and they're fundamental to within the Building Safety Act. So yes, conversations are going on, and it's really important that sort of relate. As I mentioned in the presentation, everything's about communications and collaboration. So that's useful. So at a senior level, that is happening, and I think also for our members, they're speaking with RIBA registered architects as well. So, there's definitely those conversations going on. Maybe there could be more. I don't know, but I know there's definitely a move to keep those conversations going. So that every party and every element is involved, and knows what's going on.
Great, thank you. Um, and then, yeah, a question related to Scotland from David Steele saying, for those in Scotland, worth noting that the Building Safety Act does apply in England and Wales, but has some implications for Scotland. Scottish government is introducing similar legislation, not perhaps specific act to the same degree, but a raft
Yeah.
of measures. Um, is there any particular advice you'd give on jobs in Scotland, Ian? Or
Uh, I would sort of the same thing. If you're using an FMB member, and my colleague Gordon Nelson is the FMB contact in Scotland. So everybody who's in Scotland, speak to him as well. He's doing a lot of work on that side of things around the licensing, because of the differences around, as you mentioned, David, around the license. Sorry, the Building Safety Act differences in Scotland. So. And he's also he's at pains at every meeting that we say is that he's like, yes, but it's not relevant for this bit in Scotland. So, um, and I think that's fair. Sometimes things like a license to build, because it carries all. So there's certainly things there. But yeah, absolutely aware of the differences.
thank you. Well, I think that's all the questions that have come in so far on the chat. But yeah, we've still got a quarter of an hour or so for further conversation. So yeah, anyone who else who would like to ask a question,
So
do
Robert
please.
Chapman had his hand up, and also Phil Hall.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elaine. So yeah, Robert, do you still have a question you'd like to ask?
Yes, well, it's more of an observation, and thank you for the invite. Apologies for the noise in the background. I think, and I say this respectfully to the person or contractor who made the observation about cost. There's one thing about cost, but there's another thing about value. And if a customer, and I'm a customer on a number of projects at the moment, wants to have comfort that you're dealing with a competent builder with the appropriate skills and all the rest of it, then that is worth much more than cost as in pounds. To know that you're engaging someone who's competent, experienced, qualified, etc. And therefore, I would simply suggest that any kind of membership fee would be de minimis in the scheme of things. I just wanted to make that as an observation.
Thank you. Yeah. And Elaine, I think you said
It was
Phil.
Philip Hall. I think Philip, you had your hand up. Yes, no.
You still there, Phil? Do feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, my question wasn't really much of a question, more as an observation that the FMB has a great reputation, a growing reputation for the right ways to operate a building company. And I thought sort of reassuring. I've learned that over the years that the FMB gave me all the tools I needed to run my own business. So I think the FMB has got a lot of experience and knowledge and resources, and I really praise Ian for what he's shown so far. That we do have a pretty good backup from the federation to all our builder members. So that's a lot of strength in what we have to offer. So it's well worth. I'm just reiterating what Ian said. Is that we have some really good builders in our books. So I think it's worth just saying that. But thanks for the question. Yeah.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you. Then, yeah, a couple more questions coming in. Ian, so yeah, Steve, saying, yeah, if FMB proposed to act as a licensing hub, how might that affect the membership fee? Saying they believe the membership fee at the moment is a bit more than the £170 that you're thinking might be a licensing fee.
Yeah, so I will double check on this, but I think it would be an additional fee to FMB membership, because what we're not saying is, let's say you have to be an FMB member per se. It would be that people could come to us and get a license from us. Because I think, and I didn't emphasize this enough actually, is that as well as representing our members, we're there there's a number of services they get behind the scenes as part of their membership. It's not, so the fee, the membership fee covers things like they get access to, like I say, the online, the Find a Builder service. We have the contracts which we have written, as I mentioned as well. But then you've also got the helplines, the business support, which Philip mentioned as well. So there's that side of things, and then the license, which is there to administer the scheme. It's not there as a money-making scheme. It's to, I think we're looking at it that in some ways, in a similar way to the Financial Conduct Authority's membership, the banks that have to have, that a proportion of the fee would go towards a scheme, a compensation scheme, if there was a problem. So there's that side of things. So that's where the fees go for. So there'd probably be two separate things. It would be great to come back to you in a year's time and say, right, the government have moved on and this is what the scheme is and this is how it'll work. But what I will do is I will send around as a link to the report so people can have a look as well, because I think there's probably a bit more detail in that. I know my colleagues in our external affairs team have done a lot of hard work on pulling that together. But yeah, it's a very good question, Steve.
Thank you. So yeah, a couple more questions that have come in. So Matt Austin saying, commenting from a fairly neutral position as an architect, the JCT contracts are geared a little more favourably to the client, whereas the FMB more towards the contractor in the nuances of the detail. RABA building contracts are also user-friendly and have some versions which clients can administer themselves. But saying, yeah, he thinks any of them are good options. Have you got any particular pros and cons, Ian?
I would say the pro is to always use an FMB contract. The point, the serious point is if someone's having work done, is just to make sure there is a contract, because you've got to do as much as you can to protect yourself. I think, yeah, that would, if anything, just make sure there is a contract in place and it sets out the expectations on both parties. Again, I go to events and I speak to homeowners where they didn't have anything, or they haven't got it. They're just going off a quote or an estimate, and that's what the project's being done on, and they can't understand why it's running away from them. So yeah, I haven't seen the other contracts, so I will be advocate for the FMVs, but I'm sure but ultimately, as long as there is a contract in place.
I mean, just to expand on that a bit, I mean, I guess you must be very, very familiar with this kind of question, Ian, but obviously the majority of clients engaged in a home renovation extension project, it may be the only time they're doing it in their life. They're not experts. They're being expected to learn a lot and get to grips with a lot in order to do a project. So I can well imagine a lot of clients might fear that asking for a contract might put some contractors off. Have you got any sort of views on that?
My experience when I speak to our members is that they will only work on a contract because they want peace of mind for them, so they know if there is a problem on the client side, they can say, well, if if there's an issue in the projects, there's a if there's a oh, I thought you were doing it, and both parties can look at the contract and see who said they were doing something, and that's obviously, oh right, you were there, especially if there's a dispute that comes up. I think I don't think a contractor, sorry, would fear contracts per se. I think if anything, it helps them.
Yeah.
Because it just sets everything out that's expected.
Right. And then, yeah, a related question around cost control. So I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with prices increasing through a project, for various reasons. How do you advise your members, or how are your members required to sort of manage cost control in a project?
Yeah, I say it's an interesting one. I think for members I speak with, they have different approaches for different projects, and it probably come. You're probably best. It's probably a better question for a builder, because obviously them are looking, and it also depends on the size. Sometimes I think it comes down to things on the size of the contract initially, and if there's risk involved in certain issues around the build itself. But yeah, cost completely. At the moment, I think we're all, just in the last week, 10 days, prices have shifted. We thought they were stabilizing, and then there'll be a knock on, and there'll be some builders who have signed a contract and it's a fixed price and that's it, and they're going to have to suck it up. And there'll be others where prices can change and it's built within the contract. But again, I think it would be, I can ask the question of some of our members and ask how they deal with those things, because I'm sure there will be examples when they have had those contracts that were favourable or not favourable.
But yeah, I think, and again, welcome any other views from anyone on the call about this. But certainly in my experience, another reason to have a contract is that it will not only set out a price, but also any sort of caveats to that price. Whether it is fixed, whether it's fixed for a certain period of time, whether there's certain elements that might vary that cost. But also, if generally, if a client asks for any changes to the work, I would always, advise clients to ask for a quote for that change, rather than simply instructing it, because that could get into a situation where you don't know what the additional cost might be. Yeah. Okay, then a question from Matt Austin saying, Ian, could you comment on payment for materials or goods off-site or in advance? You mentioned in your talk that clients shouldn't necessarily expect to pay a huge amount up front. But equally, Matt's saying, for instance, window packages might require 60% deposit or something. So yeah, what would you expect your members to do to deal with that?
Oh, that's a really good one actually, and it's as I say, it's almost, you can trust your gut. If there's a project that requires a big window package, but I suppose it comes down to the schedule of payment for the work itself. So if it's factored into the certain stages, We might have, I think we've got, I say Phillips on the call as a builder and FMB member. We might have other members who might be able to advise how they work it, but it's much more around the initial. Oh, right, you've got this project, and I want 50% of a £100,000 project up front, please. Thanks very much. And there's no expectation or understanding what it's for. It's just being understanding what it is that they're asking that money to cover. That, I think, is a really important option to do.
Yeah, just seeing Peter Atkins, who's on the call, had something to maybe say about cost control. Peter, did you want to chip in with that?
Yeah, thanks. And Ian's actually the hub director for my area, where I serve as vice president of the Southern Region Board. And yeah, I can comment on cost control for sure. I mean, I would expect most projects would be under a fixed price contract. So a builder typically, like myself, would enter into a fixed price based on drawings and a full takeoff. And then as the contract progresses, there may well be variations to that contract. And that typically happens on most projects. But that should be dealt with in a very structured way, where the variation should be discussed with the client, should be agreed what that payment is, and it should be also signed off before that work then progresses. The pitfalls that many fall into, both builder and clients, are that things just happen along the way because there's pressure to get the job done, as it were. Often that can lead to a big bill at the end, and it's a surprise to it's not a surprise to the contractor. They know it's coming, but invariably the homeowner's forgotten about these extras, and it's a surprise at the end. So it's really important to document these things, agree them before the extra work goes ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. Yeah.
I can also answer on the structured payments, if that helps.
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So there's a couple of ways that most builders will enter into a contract. So that would either be through a payment schedule, which would tend to happen, or it would be on a contract. Where a QS would valuation payments. So that would valuation payment would typically happen where an architect is on the project or a quantity surveyor, and they would agree with the builder how much work has been done, and that would then quantify the payment that is to be made per section of work. Where there isn't that set up, I would expect most builders to have a structured payment schedule, so there is no random payments being asked for. And again, this is where a lot of homeowners fall into that, whereas they're just relying on the builders say so when they come to them and say, right, I want £10,000, I want £5,000, and there's no real rationale behind it. So I would expect to see a breakdown of key payment schedules set a benchmark, as it were, where the builder would hit, and then they're requesting payments. So that would involve a deposit at the beginning and also a completion payment at the end. Hope that helps.
Very helpful. Thank you, Peter. Yeah. Great. So just we've only got a few minutes left, so I'll just try and Ian, see if we can cover the remaining few questions on the chat. So one from Amanda Jones saying, yeah, do you have an interface where members of the public can see your contracts, which might encourage them to want to use an FMB member by seeing what the sort of contracts that you advise?
It's an issue. We don't have them available outside of our paywall. Obviously, our members have paid for it. But Amanda, if you wanted to get in touch afterwards, I'll see if I can get at least get some details and see what it. I can't show you the contracts, but I might be able to tell you what it covers and do it that way.
Thanks, Ian. And then a couple of questions around training. So what's your view on standards in the industry, and do you require members to undertake any sort of ongoing training to try and maintain standards?
Yeah, so on training, it's definitely something that we've been pushing around the support for members to do training. While at the moment we don't mandate a set number of training. We're not a professional body, So our members, we're not like the CIOB or ROBA where there's an expectation, there's a requirement of membership. However, what we are looking at is within the license to build campaign is the point of competency. So we're looking at what training would that require. But we also expect our members to be keeping up to date with things like the building regs changes and those sort of things, and new innovations on technology and around, let's say, energy efficiency, whatever the new products are. But it's certainly skills and training is a big one that we're pushing our members to keep, to making sure that they are doing what they can.
Can you imagine training being part of the license to build? Do you know if that is mentioned in the license to build proposal?
It's around the competencies to say what minimum standards would be needed, and then obviously there'd be an expectation to keep up to those standards.
Great. And then another sort of related question around that license to build from Steve saying, how would contractors win more work by having a license if they're mandatory and so everyone needs one anyway? You know, what sort of proportion of the industry do you think might not achieve that license to build?
I haven't got that figure in front of me, the number, but I know it exists in the report. But what if we drive out the black market, the grey market of the industry, then that money is going to go. People want those those projects doing, and builders are only got the capacity to do a certain amount of projects at any one time. So what it would do is, in theory, mean that there are more projects for more people to do. And as I mentioned in the presentation as well, I think there is a latent demand for work to be done, but people are concerned about having it done because they worry about being affected by a rogue trader. So absolutely. And I think it's that cost of, I would like to it's in the same way as FMB membership is important, that it helps people win work because it shows competency. So it just helps. There's these things. But if it raises standards and more people having work done, Steve, and I'd like to think Steve will then find he would be keeping winning more work anyway.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to call this the final question because we're just past 6 o'clock now, but a very relevant one around cost control again. The oil price is jumping up at the moment, as everyone's probably seen on the news. Do you know when it comes to those sort of world events, Ian, if the contracts you guys recommend have any clauses around that sort of thing?
In terms of that, I'll have to check. But in terms of the cost of when world events happen, and as Peter mentioned, there are issues around prices, and prices fluctuate on materials and all sorts of things. So it does filter into, and I'm sure there will be in the next couple of weeks, prices will have shifted on most of the materials and things that builders have quoted for, and they've either signed the contract and that's it, or they might be looking to renegotiate because it's just not feasible. But I don't know. But I can imagine there will be issues, especially for materials.
Tom, you're on mute.
Apologies, I'd lost my button there. Let me just reshare screen on that. We're going to have to call it a day there. We're just past 6 o'clock. Really lovely to see all those questions coming in, and that this topic has garnered a lot of interest, and really nice to see a lot of different views, coming from different parties and different players in the industry. So thank you everyone for your contributions. Thank you particularly to Ian for presenting. I think a really, really relevant topic. And lovely to hear from a different player in the industry that we I don't think we've hosted for a while at the Green Register. So great to have you along, Ian. We will, as I say, circulate the slides from today, and maybe a few additional links, a few things that Ian mentioned he might share some links to. So anyone who's joined the call, we will share those with you, and also a recording and a list of the questions in the chat. So just finally, before I go, just wanted to say what we've got coming up. So as I said, we run a regular series of of events, usually a couple every week, and just a flavour here of the next few coming up in March. So we've got one next week around using Woofy for software for assessing moisture risk in retrofit. So something that some of you may have been involved with, or at least certainly the issue of moisture risk. And then the following week, a session around building biology, which is already around standards around healthy buildings in terms of off-gassing and good air quality and materials, healthy materials. And then the following week, a talk around stone and using stone structurally. Again, obviously an ancient material that we've used structurally for many years, but it's fallen out of favor maybe in the last 40 or 50 years, but is making a comeback. So do come along to that. So yes, final thank you to everyone who's joined the call today. Really lively discussion, and hope to see some of you again soon for another talk. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.